All right, CCU, at this time, I'd like to introduce to you guys the owner of Harambe Social Services, Rose Williams. Welcome to our show this morning.
Well, good morning. How are you this morning?
I'm doing really good. Thank you for coming and joining us and giving us all this insightful information this morning. Can't wait to get down to it. So you guys always know we start off and getting some more information about our members. Can you tell our viewers how long you've been a member here at CCU?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity
Of
to come this morning and share with the congregation and all of the listeners about what we do at Harambe Social Services. First of all, I've been a member of CCU for about 7 or 8 years now.
Okay. So that's a pretty good time. So what made you start your business, Harambe? Let's get down to that because that's what we're here to talk about. So let's find out why did you start that business?
Well, I have been working for the statewide coalition to end domestic violence I worked for them for 13 years. And in my work there, I was able to visit with all of the domestic violence programs throughout the state of New Jersey.
Okay.
And these are nonprofit organizations, but most of them are funded by the state or the federal government. But in that work, I learned that some victims and survivors were being left out. There were gaps in services, in other words.
Wow.
So Black and African American communities were not really being fully served,
right,
and that they didn't always know about what services were available or where the services were. And that was a major issue.
Definitely.
That's a major issue because a New Jersey survey back in 2013 showed that Black and African American women and men are 3.5 times more likely to be murdered in an intimate partner violence situation.
Wow.
So that's a major issue. And that's right here in the state of New Jersey. So for that reason, around 2013, with a group of my colleagues and friends, we got together and started talking about those gaps and how we could remedy that.
Right.
And we decided to found Harambe Social Services.
Where did you get the name Harambe from? Does it have a meaning behind it, or?
Certainly does. And there have been other people who have used that name, but one of the things that many people hear about domestic violence is that it is a woman's issue.
Right.
So women should just pick better partners. They should make themselves safe.
Right.
They should get out of situations when they find they're in a bad situation. And if they just took care of themselves,
right,
then we wouldn't have to deal with domestic violence. All misconceptions.
Yes.
But in fact, it is the entire community's responsibility,
yes,
to check each other on domestic violence.
Yeah.
And when you see these kinds of things, or over here, men, predominantly men, but often it's women involved as well.
Yes.
When we hear these kind of violent remarks of people being humiliated and in some way being abused, whether it's physically or whether it's emotionally, we should step in. We should say something and do something.
As a community, yes.
As a community. So therefore, Harambe means in Swahili, pulling together in unity. So we should be pulling together as a community, working to end domestic violence.
I feel like in the Black community, like you mentioned, and the Black community especially, that's a big stigma. Like we grow up in households who tell us, okay, for example, what stays in this house, like you mentioned earlier, what happens in this house stays in this house, or you know who you married, or girl, you can't handle that, or they kind of downplay the situation that you're going through. So can you give our viewers, if someone is going through a situation and they have family members or friends who are telling them that their emotions are invalid, some very big warning signs that they're in an abusive relationship?
Yeah. Well, I think the first sign, and really a very successful tool for people who harm other people, is to isolate them. So in a relationship, most people, when you start a relationship, it feels lovey-dovey and romantic. And
they're
they're so jealous.
Yeah.
But be mindful of jealousy that becomes obsessive.
Right.
So that when you are now being told, oh, your best friend is really not your best friend because they're jealous of you or they're beneath you.
Wow.
You shouldn't have that person as a friend.
Mm-hmm.
They're telling you that about family members or even students who are in school, and they'll tell you, well, don't go to band practice. Don't
Right.
go to choir rehearsal. You know, there's always some reason why they're feeling you need to just stay with only them. So that's how the isolation begins, but it's a very powerful tool in that by the time you've become isolated, now you have no support system.
Right.
So
right.
you don't have people to go to and say, this is happening or that's happening. Nobody's around.
Right. So that's the first side, I'm guessing, isolation. Is there any more after that?
Absolutely. Isolation, sometimes the physical doesn't happen right away. It can begin with emotional abuse where there's put downs and making you feel like you're not worthy, and certainly that you're stupid or whatever, name calling, embarrassing you in public.
Right.
But that whole getting you to believe that you have to depend on them and you're nothing without them.
Right.
And because again, the whole issue is really about power and control. The person that wants to be dominant, be holding all the power and control over your life. And you gradually begin to realize you have no power in anything.
Right. So if someone's going through these type of things and they're feeling this type of way about their partner, man or woman, how would they get in contact with Harambe, or what is the best avenue, or is there a hotline they can call to speak to someone to kind of like voice what's going on in their relationship?
Absolutely. First of all, there's national hotlines and there's a statewide hotline, but they can contact a statewide hotline, and I recommend that because it's 24/7. 24/7, they can reach the statewide hotline, and they can Google that and find that number. Unfortunately, I can't tell you
We'll
immediately.
Get it.
But hopefully we can broadcast that.
Right.
But there's a statewide hotline that can talk to you 24/7, and that's important because often people don't have a special time that they can call. They call when they can get a moment free, when they're not being watched.
Right.
But of course, Harambe Social Services, someone is available. Our offices are open between 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. That phone number is 609-225-6936. Somebody is there to talk to you, and you can explain, what the situation is, and we will do everything we can to help you get into a safe situation.
So do you think that if someone's going through this, that it would be a good avenue for them to go get counseling, like as a couples counseling or anything like that? Because that's what most people would say. Okay, I'm going through this in my relationship or my marriage. Oh, I need to go see someone and we need to sit down and talk about this.
Sadly, couples counseling is extremely dangerous and risky for a person that's being abused. And very often, especially if you're in the church, I'm going to go talk to my pastor.
Right.
Or the abuser may say, let's talk to the pastor.
Right.
Unfortunately, when you're already in a situation where you're being controlled, if you're in a counseling situation, especially a couples counseling situation, then you're going to be asked questions. You're going to need to respond. Your body language may present in a certain way. Right. And then when you go home, then you have to reckon with what happened in the counseling session. So one of the things that we do, we recommend certainly that you try to get some counseling outside of a couples counseling situation. And we do have that available.
So individually, by
yourself.
Okay.
And we can do that at Harambe, or we can, recommend other situations. But certainly couples counseling is really not going to be helpful because you're not in an equal situation. Right. You're not on an equal playing field in that couple.
Sometimes that person might feel scared to really open up and speak, or if they do,
whatever you say is going to be wrong.
Okay.
You because that's the whole, so much of being in these relationships is a mind game.
Right.
So I have on purple today. So I could be told, well, didn't I tell you not to wear purple? Then we go somewhere else and I don't have on purple. He says, well, why don't you have on purple today? So it's a mind game.
Wow.
It's a mind game.
Wow.
And so, however, you try to acquiesce and try to be a part of the, I'll just do better.
Right.
You can't be better because it really is about the other person. It's not really about you. And that's why the counseling is so important. We have counsel people who are staying in the situation at this time because for many reasons they stay, but we can counsel them while they're in the situation so they can help to understand that is a mind game and don't listen to that. This is what's happening,
So what are I'm trying to, if someone is looking for an outreach and they have a belief that God has put them into the situation and the abusive partner is using scripture and things like that, how do they handle that?
Yeah. Well, the thing is that we have ministers who are very trained in domestic violence.
Okay.
And if someone calls us and they have that particular belief, we will connect them to a counselor who can go scripturally at why domestic violence is wrong. And that is not God's will for them to be in that situation.
Are there specific verses that that abusers use to kind of
Yeah, there are, but I don't have the references now, so I'm not.
I would personally think they would use, your wife's supposed to be submissive to the husband, and it's like they use that as saying, because I'm telling you to do this, you need to listen. That's.
But again,
I think that would be one of them.
That would be one of them, and as with many scriptures, if you only read one portion of the scripture, then you're not going to have the whole context, the full context of what the scripture means, and that's why we do go to churches, and that's something that we have done here some years ago. We had something at one of the women's retreats where we brought a whole training around domestic violence, but with faith communities is really important because our faith is very important to us. Yes. And if we're holding on to that, but then we have someone who's also in the church, but they're using the Bible to manipulate you. Right. Then we have to help them understand what those scriptures really are saying. Yes. So it's very important.
If I'm a viewer out there who is interested in finding out more about your program and want to hear more about what you have to say, is there a social media or podcast that I can listen to kind of get more information on what to do?
We happen to have a podcast which is called We Hear You. It is on 5 channels right now, but if you go to Buzzsprout, then you can get a listing of all of the podcasts. Okay. And also, if you go on our website, there is a link on our website that will lead you to our podcast. And the website is www.harambesocialservices.org.
Okay. And you have Facebook and all those other social medias as well?
Facebook and Instagram.
Okay. And it's all under Harambe?
Harambe Social Services.
All right. Perfect.
At Harambe Social Services is the Instagram.
Thank you so much. I got so much information from today. I just wanted to, kind of reiterate everything that was going through. I got from it that abusive relationships can be not from just the woman's side, but from men as well. Mm-hmm. And that it doesn't always start off physical or anything. It can start off emotional. Absolutely. And I honestly think emotional is just as bad as physical. Because you can't...
It leaves scars.
Yeah, it leaves scars. When you go through a situation, you automatically go back to how you felt in that situation. Sometimes you can forget how you felt, physically, but emotionally, you never forget that. It leaves scars. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And that's an important thing, and I didn't highlight that enough. We do provide services for both men and women.
Yes.
Because unfortunately, because of how our society socializes men and women, we believe that if a man comes forward, then he's a weak person. He's not a man. He's weakly. He's not manly. And the thing is that any person can be humiliated or physically overtaken by another. So
Right.
it's not about it's only women, it's men and women that can
as
be
well.
victims, and certainly we provide those services equally.
Amazing. Wow.